Well, I have had a lot of comments about how short my sermon was last Sunday. So I would like to apologize for that, and I'll do my best to make up for it today, okay? I don't know what happened. You run out of soap, you just quit washing, So anyway, we'll see how it goes today. Today we're going to finish up our series on the 10 Commandments, and this one has to do with the word covet, and how we should learn to be content with what we have. Years ago, Milton Bradley came out with a board game called Mall Madness. You ever heard of that? It was many years ago. I think it's still around, though. And I looked it up last night. The object of the game is to see how much you can purchase in a particular period of time. Every player gets a credit card and a certain amount of cash. And the first one that can buy 6 items and get back to their car in the parking lot wins the game. So how about that? Now, this came out like 30 years ago, but it's still around. And so we're living in a culture, of course, that celebrates spending and purchasing things and buying things and shopping. How many of you like to go shopping? Yeah, not just women, right? Oh, come on. Y'all are lying through your teeth this morning. Come on. Everybody likes to shop. I don't like to shop for regular stuff, but I love to shop like for souvenirs. I go to Israel, I can spend all day looking for souvenirs. So if it's something I guess you're really interested in, it makes a difference. They say that men, when they go shopping, they know what they want. They go in there and they get it and they leave. It's kind of like hunting. You shoot it, you bag it, and you leave, Women like to just shop. They just like to look, It's just kind of part of the adventure. So it's kind of a part of our culture that we like to do that thing. You know what the number one pastime of teenage females is? It used to be shopping. Nowadays it's social media. That doesn't surprise anybody, does it? Social media and vaping, which is not good. But kind of coming in close behind that would be shopping. And it's not just women. Men like to shop as well. We all like to go out and look for things that we want, and get excited about making purchases and stuff like that. And I want to say from the beginning, there's nothing wrong with having stuff. There's nothing wrong with wanting material possessions. I think we're very blessed, frankly, by the Lord to live in a culture where those things are available to us, don't you? Isn't it wonderful to have the wonderful conveniences that we have? And, you watch these movies and shows from years ago about what people didn't have. They didn't have indoor plumbing. They didn't have automobiles like we do. And you wonder, how in the world did people get by? How did anybody ever get by without a cell phone? I don't see how that's possible. Do you? You used to think, I don't need one of those. Why would I need one of those? Well, now we probably all have one, and we can't even think about getting by without it. So it's okay to want new stuff. It's okay to want material possessions. It's okay to want to better yourself, to have a nicer home, to have a nicer car. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. The point is, you need to be careful that it doesn't get out of control, that you don't lose your focus on what's most important, which, of course, is your relationship with the Lord and serving Him. So it's okay to want to have stuff, but we need to be careful that we don't covet. The 10th commandment in Exodus 20:17 is, you shall not covet. Then it goes on to say, anything that belongs to your neighbor's wife, your neighbor's donkey, anything. You shouldn't covet. Now, I put a definition here of the word covet. The word covet means the uncontrolled desire to acquire. So the key word there is uncontrolled. It's okay to acquire things. We all do. But if it's out of control, if it's just completely, an obsession with you to want more and more things to the point where it's unhealthy, then that's what it means to covet. Thou shalt not covet. Really very similar to the 8th commandment, thou shalt not steal. Really, to covet to me is to want something so badly that you even kind of contemplate how you could get it. Even if you had to steal it to get it. Somebody else has something and you want that thing, and so you kind of plot and plan in your mind, at least you think about the possibility, how could I get that? And so it's kind of similar. This ideology of socialism that we hear so much about today, do you know that it violates those 2 commandments, thou shalt not steal and thou shalt not covet? It really does. To take something that belongs to someone else to have for yourself, that's stealing, isn't it? And to think about doing that is to covet. And so we have to be careful not to do that. Why is it wrong for someone to acquire a lot of money and work hard for that money and keep that money, but it's okay for someone to come along and take that money away from you and keep it for themselves. It's not okay, is it? It's wrong. And so, that's what it means to covet. To want something so badly that you're willing to take it away from someone else and have it for yourself. One day some soldiers came up to John the Baptist, and of course he was a very popular preacher and everything, and folks were just drawn to him, and they wanted to know what the Word of God taught and everything and what God wanted them to do. And so these soldiers asked John the Baptist, what should we do? What would you have us do? And John the Baptist said, be content with your pay. Now the reason he said that was because the soldiers often had an opportunity to extort money out of people. If you're arresting someone, you have an opportunity to extort them. And so John the Baptist was saying, don't do that. Don't be tempted to try and get something that doesn't belong to you. Be content with what you have. And again, that doesn't mean you can't strive to improve yourself or to do better or whatever. It just means you shouldn't, get into the area of greed and obsession with material things. Let's talk about the effect of always wanting more stuff. The effect of always wanting more stuff to the point of greed. As we look at this, I think about how hard it is for some Christians to give to the church, to the Lord's work. One reason for that is because they get caught up in this concept of covetousness. They want things. And so they think, I have to have all these things, and go out and spend all the money on all these other things, and then there's nothing left to give to the Lord. And the Lord said it should be the other way around, right? Give to Him first. Give Him the first part of your earnings, which I believe should be a tithe, and then the Lord will help you to live on that other 90%. And so, but that's the problem that a lot of folks have today because of the world that we're living in and the materialism that we have to struggle with all the time. Is a lot of folks really struggle with that. A lot of Christians really struggle with that. And it's really, really hard for them to have anything left to give to the Lord's work. I've talked to a lot of Christians that feel really guilty about that. I know I need to do better. I know I need to be giving to the Lord's work. But they get caught up in this materialism and this covetous attitude. And they just want other things so badly that they give into that temptation. And many times they get into trouble financially. So it's difficult in our culture. Well, what's the effect of always wanting more stuff? Let's look at a few things. 5 things here. First of all, it causes fatigue. It causes you to be tired. If you're working long hours, if you're working a second job, usually in most families today, the husband and the wife both work, right, if you're younger. And that's because we need more stuff, right? At least we think we need more stuff. I always wonder, is it a matter of what you really need, or is it what you just want to have? You have to evaluate that and decide what that is. But it can just wear you out. I mean, you could be completely exhausted from working so much to make more money, to get more stuff, that you don't really enjoy your life. You don't have any time with your family or anything like that. In Proverbs 23, verse 4, it says, "Do not wear yourself out to get rich. Have the wisdom to show restraint." And so if you work so hard that you're just completely exhausted and you don't have any time to spend with your family, to enjoy life with your family, to enjoy your life in other ways, what are you working for? What's the purpose? Is it just to mass up more stuff, more stuff? Remember the parable Jesus told about the rich farmer who filled up his barns with his crops? And they got completely full, and he had this dilemma. He said, now what am I going to do? My barns are full. He said, I know what I'll do. I'll tear them down and build bigger barns so I can pile up more stuff, right? A couple of years ago, I helped a friend of mine move. You know, when you have a pickup, you get called on quite a bit to help somebody move. And anyway, he asked me if I would help him move, and so we did. And he had like 3 storage units full of stuff that he had taken out of his house, and they were moving to a new house. And we spent like 3 or 4 days moving all this stuff. And there was so much stuff that his garage, this big 2-car garage, was almost completely full of stuff. Just stuff, you know. And you look at that and you think, my soul, do you really need all of this stuff? You know, some of it's just, you just keep it. Well, someday I may need that. We kind of become like hoarders, don't we? We just keep piling stuff up. I wonder what your closet looks like. I want you to know, I don't want you to see my closet. It's stuff's thrown in there, you know, and we need to be going through that and sorting that stuff out. A lot of that stuff could probably be thrown away, But we just have a tendency, I think, in our culture to hang on to that stuff. It's just a part of the world that we live in. So, if you're wearing yourself out and you're tired from all your work and you don't have time to really enjoy life, what are you working for? What's it all about? Find a way to get around that. It can be done. I promise you. You can get by with a whole lot less than you think you can. You just think, I won't be happy if I don't have all this stuff. Well, trust me, you can be. There's no substitute for spending time with people you love and enjoying life, going places, doing things, having the opportunity to do that. If you're just a workaholic and you're working all the time, before long, I promise you, your life's going to come to an end. You're going to look back on it and think, why did I do that? Why did I waste all of that time that I could have been spending with other people, with the people I love? Once it's gone, isn't it? And you can't get it back. Isn't it amazing how quickly time flies by? I'll look at the calendar. From a couple of years ago, something happened. I'll look back to see what we did 2 years ago, and it seems like it's just the other day. 2 years just whizzes by in no time at all. And so be careful, because time really passes quickly, and you want to make the most of it. So another effect of wanting more stuff is obviously debt. Debt is a real problem in our culture today. Isn't that right? Ecclesiastes 5:11 says, as goods increase, so do those who consume them. I looked up the latest statistics last night, and the average American has $16,000 in credit card debt. So that's the average. Some of you may be well above average. I don't know. Ask me how much credit card debt I have. Goose egg. I've never had any credit card debt. Frankly, that's just silly. That's stupid. Don't do that. You don't want to give that money to some bank. You know that Americans give $113 billion in interest every year on credit cards? $113 billion a year on credit card interest. Somebody's getting rich, right? And it's not us. The reason for that is because we see something and we think, I got to have that right now. I need that right now. Instead of waiting for it, save up for it. Instead of thinking, I've got to wait until I can afford that, you think, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to get that right now. If I'll get that now, I'll be happy, right? Then the bills start rolling in, don't they? Then you don't have any money to do anything else. You're working around the clock trying to pay your bills. You can't give anything to the church because you're spending all your money on other stuff, right? I understand the temptation. It's really not that hard to discipline yourself to understand that you don't have to have everything right now. We used to live across the street. We bought a new house 3.5 years ago. We love it. Brand new home out in City View that we had built. And this was a long-standing project. We decided, years ago, someday, of course, we'd like to have a new home. But we moved into this house across the street because it was so close to the church, and we were there for 23 years. So we stayed there 23 years. And the whole time we were there, we took care of it, maintained it, and painted it, and put a new roof on it, and all that kind of stuff. But the whole time we were there, I kept telling Charlotte, let's not spend a lot of money on this house. Let's just try to take care of it, and save as much money as we can. And then someday when we get a new home, let's put that money into the new home. What do you think? So she went along with that. So anyway, this is the truth. We moved into that house, in 1993, and we lived there for 23 years. We never replaced the carpet. And it wasn't new when we moved in. I don't know how long it had been there, Some people just, oh my gosh, you got to have new carpet every 3 years, 23. Now, we cleaned it, don't get me wrong. We cleaned it and vacuumed, at least I did, Don't tell Charlotte I said that. Anyway, we took care of it, and shampooed it when it needed it and all that. It had some places that were not real good, but can you imagine going 23 years with used carpet and never changing that out? We also, when we moved in over there, we had a little bit of money from Charlotte's retirement from school. She cashed that in, and we bought some new furniture. It wasn't anything fancy, but we got a new sofa and a new love seat and a recliner in the living room. We never replaced them for 23 years. We had a coffee table and a couple of end tables that we had even before that we moved in there with. Never replaced them for all those years. Now, some people say, how in the world could you go that long without replacing all that stuff? Well, because we had a plan, you know. You don't have to have it. It wouldn't make me any happier to have brand new stuff, you know. Now, sometimes you got to buy something like a refrigerator when they go out and that kind of stuff. We got by just fine. We were very happy, okay? Here's the thing. When we bought this new house, you know, we saved for that, and we sold our house and moved into that house. And I said, okay, Charlotte, let's go shopping. And Kenny Clear told me about a furniture store in Oklahoma City, this great old big furniture store. And so we went there on one Saturday, and I called ahead and made arrangements to meet this saleswoman and everything. And we spent about 4 or 5 hours at this big furniture store in Oklahoma City, and we were just about to move into our new home. And we spent $25,000 in about 4 hours. It was kind of fun. It really was. Now, we'd saved up all these years. I guess about $1,000 a year, right? $25,000. Charlotte looked at me like I'd lost my mind, you know. We're walking around, okay, let's buy stuff for the living room. Okay, let's buy stuff for the den. Okay, let's buy stuff for the dining room. Let's get stuff for my office. Let's get stuff for the bedroom. And we had a ball. I mean, we went around picking all this stuff out. And it's pretty good stuff, too. It's not junk. It's pretty good stuff. Boy, I want you to know, that saleswoman had a fantastic time. She had a ball, you know. We got done with that, and I looked over at her, and we're, you know, writing this check out. And I said, you ought to take the rest of the day off. She said, I'm going to. I'm going home, you know. See, so I'm not as tight as you think I am. I just hang on to it for a while, then I'll spend it. You know, we had a plan. You know, stuff will last a lot longer than you think it will. I don't have any plans to buy any more furniture the rest of my life. At least not much. We don't need it. What we got is plenty good. It's good stuff. You know, the last 2 pickups I drove before the one I got now, I drove for 16 years each. 16 years. Of course, they were Fords. That explains it, right? Hardly had any trouble at all. I've had this Ford for 5 years. If I keep it for 16 years, I'll be 75 years. That'll be in the year 2031. They may not even make trucks by then. You know, who knows? If you'll take care of stuff, you know what I did? Here's what I did. I washed them and I changed the oil in them. That's about it. Vacuum them out. You know, take care of stuff. If you take care of stuff, it'll last a long time. It really will. You don't have to have new stuff all the time. I bet you there's some of you in here that have to have the new smartphone the second it comes out, right? I know a few of you. I keep mine until it won't work anymore, until the battery dies, then I go get a new one. It's kind of fun to go get a new one, you know. $1,100, you know. But every 4 or 5 years, that's not too bad. So you got to think about stuff like that. That's my opinion. I think that's a good philosophy. You don't have to put stuff on credit is the point. You can save up for it. You can make things last. And then when the time comes, you can go purchase something really nice, and you can keep it for a long, long time. It's really not that hard to do. And then you can spend more time with your family instead of wasting all that money on interest and everything, and spend time going places together and doing things together. And it's just, to me, it's such a blessing. There's no exchange. Nothing would substitute for time with your family and giving to the Lord's work over those years. It's such a blessing, such a fulfillment to be able to do that if you're very, very careful with your money. So debt is a bad effect of wanting more stuff. A third thing is worry. Worry. Do you know that insomnia increases with income? It really does. In Ecclesiastes 5:12, the Bible says, a working man, which would be a common worker, can get a good night's sleep, but the rich man has so much that he stays awake worrying all the time, worrying about his money, worrying about her money. It really is true. The more you make, the more you want, isn't it? It seems like you're never satisfied. You want more and more stuff. You have to be careful. And so worry can be a very devastating thing. It causes stress. It causes anxiety. It'll shorten your life. It causes ulcers. It's just not worth it, is it? Just enjoy what you have as best you can. You can have a great time without spending a lot of money. You really can. It really is possible to do that. You know, there's an old urban legend that years ago, during the stock market crash, you know, 1929, that all these stock market analysts and everything were jumping out of windows. Remember that? When the market crashed, you ever heard that? All these people jumping out of buildings, jumping out of windows, committing suicide because they lost all their money. That's probably just an urban legend. I don't think that really happened wide scale, but it does kind of pinpoint a problem, doesn't it? If you put all your thoughts into making more and more money all the time and you're just obsessed with it, you're going to worry about that, you're going to be focused on that instead of other things. You're really going to miss out on a lot of life because you're so obsessed with material things. And then number 4, the effect of wanting more causes conflict. One of the major reasons for divorce today is financial conflict. The couple just argue and fight over finances. A lot of you can relate to that. A lot of folks struggle with this. Disagreement on how to spend the money. And so this is a very important thing, and you should follow the scriptures and be very careful about how you handle the money. Also, when it comes to being a person that covets other things, infidelity often comes out of coveting someone else. In fact, the scripture says, don't covet your neighbor's wife or your neighbor's husband or anything like that. And so it can also cause that kind of conflict. James 4:1 says, what causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? And so you have this desire within you. You want things so badly that you finally just kind of act upon that. So it's a really dangerous thing. Excuse me. And then number 5, dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction. Ecclesiastes 5:10 says, whoever loves money never has money enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with his income. The more you make, the more you want. Notice the word love. It's the love of money that is the root of all evil, right? Not money itself. It's the love of money. The love of material possessions can really be a very dangerous thing. And sometimes we just think we got to have more and more and more and more and more. And I guess we're trying to fill up some kind of a hole there, and it just never seems to get full, does it? So those are some of the negative effects of having an attitude of someone who covets material things. Well, how can you learn contentment? Look on the back side of your outline. How can you learn to be content? 4 things. First of all, you need to resist comparing yourself to other people. Always trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? Well, they got a new car, so I guess we need to get one. Or they bought a new house, I guess we need to buy one. And so sometimes we look at others and we covet what they're doing, and we really want what they have, and so we go out and we do that. And that can be okay if you can afford it, but if it's excessive, if it's becoming a greed thing, then it's a real problem. Paul said in 2 Corinthians 10:12, we do not dare to classify or compare ourselves with other people. And so don't worry about what others have. You don't necessarily have to have the things that other people have. I think I told you before when I went into the ministry, our finances really dropped it like a rock. I mean, at that time, Charlotte wasn't working, and I was working in an engineering office as a draftsman. And when I went into the ministry and I quit that job, my salary was cut right in half. I mean, right in half. Think about that. What if your salary was cut in half today? I mean, it was a big deal. So we had to learn how to get by without a lot of things that we were used to. We had everything we wanted up till that time. And so we loaded up the U-Haul truck, and moved to Fort Worth to go to seminary and all of that. And boy, I mean, we just kind of lived on a shoestring, from month to month. But that was one of the happiest times of my life. I'm telling you the truth. It really was. At first, I thought, how are we going to do this? How are we going to get by? How are we going to make it? But it just seemed to work out. Every month we seemed to be fine. We seemed to get by okay. And that was one of the happiest times of my life. I mean, I'm happy all the time, but I was really, really content and happy. And what's so amazing about that is I was afraid that I couldn't be happy if we didn't have a whole lot of stuff, what everybody else had, the big fancy new home and all of that. Well, we moved into a little old 2-bedroom seminary apartment. None of us, Charlotte and I, had never lived in an apartment. We'd always been in a home. And so that was a big, big change to us and everything, a big change of lifestyle and everything. But it was just such a joy that we had, knowing that we were in the center of God's will, that we were doing what the Lord wanted us to do. And we just didn't need all that stuff. You didn't have to have all those material things to be happy. You really don't. You can be happy without that. I really think it's possible for a poor person to be happier than a rich person. Now, a lot of folks don't understand that. You ever notice that a lot of these celebrities that have so much money, mansions and all kinds of expensive cars and clothes and all that, many times they're the most depressed people of all. They're the ones that are really struggling and just depressed all the time and they're not happy. Think about old Elvis. Remember Elvis got into drugs and all of that? Look at all that he had. You ever been to Graceland? How many have ever been to Graceland? We went there years ago and saw all these things he had. He went from rags to riches overnight, pretty much. But it didn't work out too well for him, did it? He just wasn't really happy. He just wasn't content. And so material things, they're nice. They can be nice. But you can get by without that stuff. You really can. I play golf every once in a while, not too often. I've got some friends that like to go more often than I do, but I'll probably average once a month or so. I enjoy playing okay. Do you know the church gave me a set of golf clubs on my 40th birthday? I've got this bag and these golf clubs. I've had them for 40 years. Now, a friend of mine gave me some other clubs here a while back, some used ones and stuff, but I've got that same set of golf clubs from, 44 years ago now, or 24 years ago, 24 years ago, and when I was 40 years old. And, hey, now I could go buy a $300 driver, and you know what? I wouldn't hit the ball 1 foot further. I know I wouldn't, It may be a little bit, maybe a little. Not really that much, I'd probably be more stressed out over spending the money on the expensive clubs than I would be, playing a better game of golf, I have fun. I don't care if other people are better than I am. I'm having a good time. I don't care. Just go out there and play and enjoy yourself, and don't worry about it. We get so tied up in knots over things, and sometimes when we get into our hobbies and stuff, we'll spend a fortune on stuff thinking, man, I'm going to be happy once I spend all this money on this stuff, and you're not. Doesn't make one bit of difference, does it? I mean, you get some contentment from it, but not really enough to be worth it. So, you got to resist comparing yourself to other people. 1 Timothy 6:9 says, people who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. And so, many times, this desire to have more things can be your downfall. It can really cause you to struggle and to stumble. Number 2, rejoice in what you have. Rejoice in what you do have. Ecclesiastes 5:19 says, when God gives any man wealth and possessions and enables him to enjoy them, to accept his lot and be happy in his work, this is a gift of God. God gives you that desire, that happiness, that joy, that even though you don't have all these expensive things, you still have happiness and joy in your heart. There's 2 ways really to be satisfied when it comes to material things. You can either buy more stuff or want less stuff. Wanting less stuff is the way to go. Just train yourself to not want so much stuff and to realize that you don't really need all that stuff. How many of you ever had a garage sale? I hate those things. I hate messing with them. I'd rather give the stuff away than sell it, but most of us have a lot of stuff we really don't need, don't we? We could just get rid of, we could sell it, and just clear it out. You got way more than you need, probably. And so I think that's a good thing, kind of do a little spring cleaning every once in a while and get rid of that stuff. Ecclesiastes 6:9 says it's better to enjoy what we have than to always want something else, because that makes no more sense than chasing the wind. It's chasing like a dog chasing his tail, right? Just doesn't work out too well, does it? Number 3, release what I have to help other people. Instead of thinking about acquiring more stuff or making more money, think about what you could do with it to help other people. Paul said in 1 Timothy 6:17, command those who are rich not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, to be generous and willing to share, and in this way they will lay up treasure for themselves. So there's several precautions there. Notice this in the passage. Don't be arrogant about material things. Don't put your hope in wealth. Be rich in good deeds, and be generous and willing to share. Would you agree with me when I say that all of us in this room, compared to the rest of the world, are rich? We're rich with material possessions, aren't we? Really are. I would think that the poorest person in here is fantastically rich compared to the rest of the world. Aren't we blessed to live in such a wonderful country? To have so many material possessions. And you look on television, and if you ever visit other parts of the world, you see how a lot of other people have to live. I mean, they're just living in a shack or something like that, and they don't know where their next meal is going to come from. They don't even know what you're talking about. You talk about electricity and plumbing and stuff like that. They don't have anything like that. Aren't we so blessed to have these things? And so we need to be careful that we don't become arrogant, that we don't become self-centered, that we don't become greedy. And think about helping other people instead of spending it all on yourself. In fact, Paul says here, lay up treasure for themselves. What's he talking about? That's what Jesus said, right? In the Sermon on the Mount. Instead of laying up treasure here on earth, the Lord says, send it on ahead. Lay up treasure in eternity. So the stuff that we have here on this earth is just temporary. We're not going to take any of it with us. But the treasure we build up in heaven is for eternity, isn't it? Now, we've talked about what that might be. I don't think it's material things at all. I don't think it's about the size of your mansion or anything like that. I think it's your capacity for joy. I think the Lord's going to help you to remember everything that you've done to help other people, the difference that you've made by being here on this earth. It's going to give you wonderful memories of the joys that you've had here on this earth and how you've served the Lord and honored Him with your life. I think those are the kind of rewards that we're going to get when we're in glory with the Lord. And that's important, isn't it? Very important. And so the Bible tells us, Jesus told us, Paul said, send it on ahead. Build up treasure in heaven. Don't worry about building it up here on earth, because everything here on earth is going to fade away. It's not going to last. It's temporary. And much more important to think about eternal things than temporary things. So release what you have to help other people. All of us are rich, and we should do the best we can to help others as we can. Does it ever make you feel good to give money to help somebody that's hungry, or somebody that has a special need of some kind? It's more blessed to give than it is to receive, isn't it? You just feel good about helping somebody. We haven't done it in a long time. Years ago, Charlotte and I would send a monthly donation to help one of these kids, somewhere on the other side of the earth that's struggling, and they send you a picture, and that kind of stuff. Those kind of things are kind of special, aren't they? Kind of connect with somebody you don't even know if it's a legitimate thing, and you're helping somebody that really can't help themselves. Isn't that a whole lot more of a blessing than going out and buying yourself some new trinket or something? I mean, it really makes a lot of difference, doesn't it? It's really a big deal. Then number 4, refocus on what's going to last. Refocus on what's really going to last. Paul said in 2 Corinthians 4:18, we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. In other words, we need to look at things with spiritual eyes. Instead of looking at the physical world all the time and dwelling on physical things, we should think about spiritual things, eternal things. Materialism sometimes kind of clouds our vision of God's will for us, what He wants us to do, what He wants us to accomplish. If you're so caught up with materialism that you can't think about serving the Lord and honoring Him and pleasing Him, then that's a negative thing. Luke 12:15, Jesus said, a man's life does not consist in the abundance of his possessions. Your life is worth a whole lot more than that, isn't it? So let me ask you again. What are you living for? What are you working for? Is it just to pile up more stuff? To have nicer things? Is that really what you're living for? What is your purpose in life? Why are you here? Why does God have you here on this planet? Isn't it to bring Him honor and glory? Isn't it to enjoy your life in such a way that it pleases Him and honors Him every single day of your life? I know it's a struggle. It is for me too. But we need to think about what really matters most. Living our lives for the Lord, spending time with those that we love, investing in things that really, really count, instead of just the temporary things that are not going to last. Does that make sense? I think that's what the Bible is trying to tell us. Thou shalt not covet. This uncontrollable desire to have all these things that we really don't need. We just want them. We don't need them. So don't let that happen to you. Let's all stand and pray.